This week on Cherry Pickin', it's part 2 of the 1 week highboy build. And this week, we're big block Ford and 5-speed swapping my 1967 F250 4x4 in order to make it to the Diff Duncan Jamboree. We have 1 week. Can we make it? And if you like seeing a lot of hackery in your YouTube videos, well, stay tuned, because there's a lot of hackery in this one. A lot. Welcome back to Cherry Pickin'. In this week's video, we're continuing on the 67 Ford F250 4x4 dent side frame swap. If you didn't catch last week's video, where we basically completely modified a 76 Ford F250 4x4 highboy frame to convert it to make it work with the 67 F250 body, you can go ahead and go back and watch that video first and then come back here, because this is a multi-part series on making my truck a 4x4. And not only a 4x4, but an engine and transmission swapped 4x4. Now, as I'm recording this morning, I actually just painted the frame, which you saw in last week's video, and you know, it's drying. It turned out fine. I wouldn't call it nice, but it's good enough for who it's for and what they're paying. Now, in this week's video, we're actually going to be focusing on the power plant for this truck, because we need to actually set the engine and transmission of the frame, make sure they fit correctly, adjust things as needed, move cross members as needed, move motor mounts as needed, drill new holes for the new engine pedestals, blah, 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 blah. Lots of stuff to do in order for the motor and transmission that we're putting in this thing to work correctly. And the reason we're doing all this is because in 1 week exactly from today, I will be leaving for the Diff Duncan Jamboree, which is put on by Ethan over at JBA. It's a bunch of guys and a bunch of old trucks taking them off-road and doing what you're supposed to be doing with them and using them. And unfortunately, I leave in a week, like I said, and my frame currently looks like how you saw it last week, where I just painted it. I don't have an axle underneath it. I don't have drive shafts. The motor is sitting in the back of my truck over there. Transmission's sitting under my foot right here. So we've got a lot of work to do. Now, if you want to do a swap like this, you probably have run into a lot of information that really isn't out there. There's some information on some people, but everyone does this differently. So I'm going to show you the way that I'm doing this swap in case it helps you out with your build. My swap entails converting a 390 NP435 truck that's a two-wheel drive onto a 76 dent side 4x4 F250 frame, also known as a highboy, while also swapping the motor to a 460 instead of an FE with a 5-speed, which is really the goal of everything I'm doing here. I actually bought this 5-speed 6 years ago to the month in order to swap it into my truck with a 460, because although I love FEs and all of my vehicles have FEs except for the Mach 1, realistically, transmission-wise, this truck is a hauler, it tows, and I use it like crazy, and I drive it on the freeway a lot, more than probably any other of my vehicles. So I would really like to have that extra cruising speed, which there aren't a lot of options for that are heavy-duty enough for towing, and the most common and easiest swap is to do the ZF5. Now, the ZF5 dimensionally is very similar to an NP435 or a T18 that you might find in your 67 to 72 F250s, F100s, F350s, and so on, but there are a few major differences. For one thing, the ZF5 has an integral bell housing, which only works with a few specific models of engines, and unfortunately, FEs are not one of them. So, that being the case, FEs, unless you have a very expensive adapter plate, FE is out of the question, and that's why I'm pulling the FE out for a 460. But the ZF5 did factory come with a 460 in front of it. So you can bolt up a big block Ford ZF5 directly to a 460 and put it inside your truck. Now, there are a few differences that you need to account for, and on these old bump side frames, you need to make some modifications and use some specialty equipment in order to fit it correctly. Now, you can custom make everything you want, but I'm here to show you that you don't have to custom make everything, and you really can just buy basically everything that you need to do this, or stumble upon it like I have. Now, the first thing we're going to do before we get the motor down and looked at is clean this thing, because that's what I need to do right now. So I'm going to go ahead and spray this thing down. It is nasty. It's greasy. It's been sitting for 6 years and sat for whoever knows how long before that in a junkyard where I pulled it out of. So I'm going to go ahead and clean this thing up, and then we'll get the motor out. We'll take a look at it, and I'll explain to you the differences of the motor I have to make it work with this transmission, because there are a few that I have to take care of. And then we'll set the whole thing in the truck, in the frame, We'll get everything lined up, we'll make sure it all fits correctly, and then we'll take it all back out in order for the next episode for us swapping our cab and our bed onto the frame and building a truck in 1 week. So, let's get to it. Clock's a ticking, timer's started. Now, nothing fancy, I'm literally just gonna hose it down the right way. Now, if I had some engine degreaser, this would be the time to use it, but we're just gonna use some good old Dawn dish soap, a scraper, a scrubber, a brush, and just put some elbow grease into it and get this thing nice and clean. And we're just gonna oh my gosh, I can't talk. We're gonna generously coat this thing in some dish soap and start scrubbing. It's gonna take a while, so I'll see you back here when it's done. Well, after last week's video of drilling out all of the holes on the frame to move the spring perches and basically prepping the frame for the new motor and trans and the body and everything else, it's now time for the not so fun job of putting the motor in. Now, putting the motor in itself is gonna be easy once we have it. The problem is, it's the once we have it that we have to figure out, because the motor is currently in a vehicle. And not only is it in a vehicle, it's in a vehicle that is currently buried by about 4 other vehicles. So we got to move a bunch of stuff. So today's moving day. Let's start moving stuff. Okay, so I already forgot to film part of this because, well, there's a lot of things that have to move, and I'll show you what we're moving next. But we already pulled out the 67 that is my truck. This is the body that's going on the frame. And the reason we pulled this out is because when we pull the motor from the other truck, we're going to put it in the back of this truck so that we can tow this truck to my house, which is about 6 minutes down the road. But we also just pulled out the 62 T-Bird, which you have probably not really seen on this channel unless you've watched every single video where we talked about projects. This car has been, well, it's been in the family since 9/11 actually, and it has been kind of a problem after problem with that car. It's come back from the dead about 3 different times now, and it'll come back. You'll see that, but let's go look at the other vehicles we still have to move. So unfortunately, the T-Bird was sitting right there, but we still have to move this little white Ranger to get that guy out, because that guy has the key to this whole build, and he's a little bit buried. All right, well, that's not happening. Guess we're pulling this thing out. All right, well, we're back from lunch, and now we've got a battery and a gas that is being backed on in, because we're gonna try to hook up some electricity on this thing, fill it with some go-go juice, and see if it'll start and move under its own power, because we don't wanna push this big, heavy 1-ton truck with a 1,000-pound boom lift on the back. So we're gonna hope that it runs just fine as it is, because it's been sitting here for probably, I don't know, 8 years, 9 years, give or take, probably. So it's kind of tight, got to jockey it, but we'll see. Yeah, go ahead. Well, this was supposed to just start up and run, but of course, nothing's ever that easy, right? So we're gonna just kind of lay that on in her. There it goes. Almost didn't like it, so we must have flooded it or something. But now we just got to get it idling is really what we got to do. Man, oh man, is it hot. But it is about 10 degrees cooler today than the day that I was drilling all those holes, which it was like 100 degrees in the sun. So, you know, I'll take 85 or 86 or whatever it is. No clouds. Nice and sunny. All right, that was way too much. All right, go ahead and hit it. We're back, battery's charged, and now we're ready to get in it and try to start it and just hope that magically our ignition problems have just solved themselves, which, you know, if you know anything about these old vehicles, it didn't. Anyways, try it again. See? magically solved itself. Oh, no brakes. Whew. It's in a hole, folks. I'm going to assume that most of our problems yesterday had to do with flooding it out and then not having the battery. So we're going to see if I can keep that running or if that's going to cause issues. Not fun having to walk back and forth on this thing. Woo! I think we made it out. Starting to warm up now finally. I don't think we hit anything. This thing, it's a tight space. Oh, it's dying. The fuel system is really questionable. This carb, it's an old Demon carb. Let me show you. So as you can see, old Demon carb on this, well, 1 ton. I'm probably burning something up. Let's get this thing out of here. I can't see a thing. I can't see anything. Well, it died on me, but whew, we'll make it out. So let's get it out front and start taking the motor out. All right, so we've got this thing finally towed back here because, well, it would not start again. It basically was just completely flooded. So we pulled it the rest of the way with the rope and actually had to push it to where it is now, which is why it's like 7 feet from my garage door instead of 4. This guy's heavy. I'm still winded from it. But we're at the point now where we can finally unbolt this thing. And we're just taking everything. So basically, this is a 70s some year, we don't actually know what year, 460 from a car, which is not going to be perfect for my setup, but will work, and we'll explain that later. This is a 70s 460 that I have been told many times is built, quote unquote. Now, how built it is, I have no idea. Honestly, I'm willing to expect that nothing is actually done to this thing, but it does have a Performer 460 Edelbrock intake, a Demon carb. It did have a Mallory ignition system that we swapped out many, many years ago, and it does have some ARP hardware, at least it looks like ARP 12-point hardware on the intake. In terms of how built it actually is, I don't expect much, and I don't expect it to have a built bottom end or a cam or anything. I mean, you heard it. It's got a good lope to it, and it's a little rough, but honestly, I'm willing to bet it's mostly a stock motor. Until I break it apart, I'm going to accept that it's probably a stock motor. It does have Dove C heads, which are the smaller combustion chamber heads for a 460. They're desirable only because they have a smaller combustion chamber. They do flow about the same as every other 460 iron head, but they have such a small combustion chamber that you basically on most 460s gain at least a point of compression by putting on these heads. So that is a nice thing. This thing should have at least 9-to-1, if not a little bit higher. We won't know until I dig into it, but we have to take everything off of this. And then this thing can be yanked out of here and put in the bed of that truck. So really, it's just time to get to it. It's going to take me a little while. It's hot, it's sunny, but we're going to go at it because my goal is to have this thing out of here by the end of today, which for me is 3.5 hours from now. So maybe we won't have it out today, but we'll have it out shortly. Well, that was fast. It's only been, I don't know, hour 10, hour 15 or so, just over an hour, and motor's ready to pull. This may have been the easiest one I've ever had to do, honestly. Nothing was stuck. Everything was pretty easy. Hardest part was just getting the upper bell housing bolts because I couldn't get a socket on them. But other than that, I mean, this is really easy. I'll be back in the morning and we'll pull it and throw it in this truck and get it home and start looking at it and maybe try to make it better. That could have been worse. Motor's out. Yeah, I was just saying, where do you want it? Stay up on its own? Yeah. It's in. All right, so we've got the motor in the back of my 67 plus some other stuff. So now we're gonna tow this truck over to my house so that I can start dealing with it and get the motor on the stand or something and start cleaning it up because it's nasty. All right, so we've been cleaning on the ZF5 for about 2.5 days now. And I realized it would have been a lot easier to get some engine degreaser, like spray on and let it soak and then spray it off, or even some Simple Green or some sort of solvent instead of just using Dawn dish soap. But, well, I didn't have that and just didn't even really come to mind. So, anyways, it's pretty clean now, but we're going to clean on it some more because what we have to do right now is take our motor and our transmission and make them kit. And then what we're going to do with that is put them in the frame, which we have now finally assembled back together, painted, and it's nice and shiny. We need to set it in there because we have no idea how this transmission is going to fit, going to sit, going to work, as well as the motor mounts, which we actually have to drill out the motor mount purchase. So let's go ahead and pull this engine out. Let's get this transmission. Let's marry them together, bolt them together, keep them together, probably unbolt the factory mount that's on the ZF currently. And I will put the block plate in because it is a 1/16 of an inch just in case. So the block plate will go in because it does sandwich between. And then we'll drop it right in. And amazingly enough, I just got a message from a guy because I had to put out there that I'm looking for drive shafts because unfortunately I'm missing my drive shafts. That was the last really big missing piece. And I just got a message from a guy. He said he could meet me about 40 minutes-ish from my house with drive shafts. So I need to get this moving like now, because I need to get measurements. Oh boy, and of course, I'm gonna be doing this alone. Oh no. Oh no, oh no. Ooh. Almost lost you there. That would have been bad. All right, so we've got our 460 here, which we're just gonna spin around and lower very carefully. Now, the oil pan that's currently on this motor is not gonna work. It's a front sump, it's not even made for a truck. It ain't gonna work, but I have a solution for that. However, it will work enough in this frame to at least let me set the motor down in it. I should be talking and working. And because of that, oop, don't scratch my brand new, and I need to get that out. But because it won't actually hurt anything just setting it in it, I'm just going to leave it on for now so that I can, the point of this is really just to get an idea where the motor mounts and the trans mount sit with the transmission, and hoping I don't have to cut or notch anything majorly. So let's bolt these two together. How am I gonna do this? Okay. It actually wasn't that bad. We got it on the dowels. So now I can put in the bolts, which all of these engine bolts, by the way, are from the ZF. So these are the ones I got in the junkyard, like a glove. Well, it's the next day. It's officially Monday. I have to leave by Thursday, and it's starting to hit me that this is going to be tight, if not impossible. So we're just going to keep plugging away, folks. It's not more else I can do. I went ahead and got some drive shafts last night, and I'll show you those in a little while. But right now, I just pulled the motor and trans back out. I got the truck sitting down on some jack stands right now, instead of the wheels. What is this plane doing? It's wrapping around, I don't know. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and throw this motor on a absolutely antique engine stand. I'm a little bit worried about its holding power, and you know, the 460 is a big girl. So we're just gonna see what happens here. Then I may be doing something that you're not gonna like, most of you at least. All the old heads are gonna be real upset with me. But we'll talk about that. Let me get this thing on and we'll get inside where it's not so windy. Huh, not bad. Shake it test, you know, just to make sure it's not gonna snap or anything before I take the hoist off. Well, that's pretty good, I think. I mean, it's as good as it's gonna get, folks. So let's get this guy off. Guess there's nothing left to do but roll this big boy in the garage. Rolls real nice. Actually, I forgot, before I bring it inside, I need to blow this thing off. A little bit better. All right, here we are with our 460. Now, in case you didn't, or in case I don't remember if I mentioned it, but this is a 1970, it's called a Dove A, which is the engineering number, the cast engineering number. It's a Dove A 460 block. Basically that means this block was built for 1970, which means that it has a certain amount of deck height, which is slightly more than the 71 and later 460s. I don't really know. But this motor, as rough as it looks, was actually rebuilt supposedly pretty mildly. Really don't know anything about it. My father bought this motor like 20 something years ago and knew that it was a mildly built motor, but didn't know anything else. Never opened it up, never checked it. We went ahead and checked this thing, and I do know that it is 30 over. It does have some dish pistons, which is kind of sucky, but it does have Dove C heads, which are the higher compression heads, which are kind of nice. It's got a aluminum Edelbrock Performer intake, Performer 460, that looks to be in relatively rough shape, unfortunately. It did have a Mallory distributor on it, but we replaced it years and years ago with the Stir-Spark one because we just had a stock bolt-in. Now this motor actually came out of a car, I believe, because it has a car oil pan, and my father used it inside a truck, and it literally was not bolted up on the motor mounts. So when we pulled this thing, the motor mount bolts just slid right out because they weren't actually in. But I went ahead and just drained the oil on this thing, and now the fun part is we need to turn this thing over because I need to pull the oil pan in order to put on a mid-hump oil pan for a 4x4. We're also going to be doing something that many of you are probably going to be very, very upset about, but at this point I don't care because it is, again, Monday, and I need this thing in the motor, or in the truck. Ooh, I'm getting tired. I need this thing in the truck and running by about Wednesday night is the hope. So we're gonna cut some corners is what I'll call it. If you're squeamish, you might want to look away for the next few minutes. Let's turn this thing over. This is going to be to flip over. Because of the way this engine stand is, I don't know if you can see me. Because of the way this engine stand is, it's not exactly centered over the crank like it probably should be. It's centered basically on the cam bearing. So hopefully, because of the weight of the heads, I'm hoping this thing's actually relatively balanced well. Oh boy. All right, and oh, we're dump and cool it. Some of them are. Now, by no means am I rebuilding this motor. That would be legitimately stupid of me, given the timeline I have. Wow, it's even got a CarQuest oil filter. Haven't seen that in a while. But I am gonna have to change some things on this motor. All right, 1/2 inch at the front. Interesting. 1/2 inch at the front and back, 7/16 all the way, the rest of the way. All right. Now the moment of truth. There we go. All right. All right. Well, pretty clean inside. Not too bad. The reason I need to not only pull the oil pan just because I need to swap the oil pan, but some of you out there may have realized that I am putting a later ZF5 transmission onto a motor from 1970. Now, although they technically bolt right up to each other, early 460s and 429s are internally balanced. Later 460s, like the ones used with ZF5s, were externally balanced. The stock ZF5 flywheel is an externally balanced flywheel. And if you want to zero balance it for an internally balanced motor, like a 1970, you have to get it machined, which, although I would love to do, I do not have time for. So the other alternative is to put an externally balanced crank and balance weight, hatchet weight that goes on the front of the motor, and run a externally balanced crank. Now the right way to do this is to build a motor with the externally balanced crank, which will fit right into the internally balanced crank blocks. However, the internal balanced crank block, what am I saying? The internal balanced cranks will not fit into later external balanced blocks. The weights inside are too large. So, what we're gonna do, well, let me just show you. If you haven't caught my drift so far, you're about to. Over here is a D9TE externally balanced block that was rebuilt at some point with the external balance crank, and you actually can see how much small, oh, can you? You can actually see how much smaller these crank weights are. There's like a finger's width in that one, whereas you come over here, is there one in the way? Well, actually you can just see physically how much larger these cranks are compared to these. Okay, the sun is not my friend right now. Let's just come all the way out. So if you take a nice gander into there, look how short that crank is compared to these ones and the main caps. They're like an inch taller if you compare the bottom of the main cap to the edge of the crank. This one, yeah, it's not over on its rotation, but you get my point. What we're gonna try to do is take this crank, which hopefully is in good shape, remove all of the main caps, the rods, and the rod caps, take this crank and the bearings that are in it, take off these main caps and rod bolts, and drop the crank and bearings from that motor into this one. Now, if you're sitting there thinking, that is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of, you are going to ruin a motor, potentially. You might be right, but at this point, it's a risk I'm going to have to take. Now, there's many times that I've failed by putting the wrong thing in the wrong motor, such as this dead car right here. That was recent even, but I don't have time. So I've got to very, very carefully swap all of the bearings, caps, everything, and take this crank out. I'm going to take my time with it. Unfortunately, I really don't have time, but I need to, because I don't want to screw it up. And then I'm going to clean the gasket surface. I'm going to torque everything back to the specs that it's supposed to be. And then we're going to move on with our day. And we'll put the mid-sump oil pan, or the center sump oil pan, in here with the correct pickup. And then we're going to pretend nothing ever happened. And this stays between you and me. Got it? This took a little bit longer than I thought, because for some reason I forgot that the whole timing cover and timing chain and water pump and everything on the front of the motor had to come off. But it's off now. All of our caps are off. All of our rod caps, all of our main caps. So now we are going to hopefully just lift the crank straight out. I know it's going to be heavy. Oh yeah. We'll actually set that down. Don't worry, that cracking noise was not my back or the crank. It was the cardboard that I was setting it on. And now we can take out all the bearings out of these rods. Most of them look fine. I wouldn't say good. There were 2 or 3 that had some pretty bad scoring. But, yeah, the rest of them are not too bad. So, now we're just going to take all the bearings out of this and then go pop off the bearings and caps off of the other motor, clean it all up, and then swap it in here. Let's go to that. Well, it's next morning, and it kind of looks like a bomb went off in here. But last night we went ahead and got the entire motor, well, we got the crank thrown back in the motor, torqued to spec, all of the rods are torqued, bottom end is done. So now we basically just have to put our oil pickup back on, and then we can start assembling the front of the engine again, put the timing chain on, put all that stuff back on, put the timing cover on, then put the oil pan on, and then get this motor back to being a motor, which we really need to do because I was hoping to have this done 2 days ago, and then I was hoping to have it done yesterday, and it didn't get done, so it will be done today. Because today is Tuesday, which means I have today, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, all to get this motor hooked up with the ZF5, dropped in the frame that I still have to drill the holes on, which I will be doing very shortly here. I still have to do brakes, which not too worried about. They all move and they all seem to be there, so I have to do brakes. I have to make sure all the wheel bearings are greased and grease the front end, because who knows the last time it was moved around. And then a bunch of other little stuff alongside still moving the entire bed and cab over. The motor will fit with the 351 M400 motor mounts. I have them 21 inches back exactly from the center of the core support bolt hole, the big round hole. 21 inches back to the very front edge of the motor mounts on both sides. Now, unfortunately, I do have to drill a few holes for the motor mounts, and there are a few holes that they don't really fit well in, or there's parts of the frame that aren't boxed that bolt holes are going to miss on, which is not a huge deal because I can still put a spacer and bolt it to the outside of the frame, but the inside has a few pockets, I think on 2 of the bolt holes, maybe even 3 of the bolt holes, that don't really line up with anything, or at least don't line up with the boxed end of the frame. We're going to go ahead and get that drilled, and then once that's done, once this motor's back together, and once we finally put the transmission officially mated to the motor, which I need to get a pilot bearing still. The trans cross member, I just need to drill some holes a little bit further back, still need to do that. We'll be doing that shortly here, and then we can drop it in for what is hopefully a final install. And yes, I am planning on cleaning this thing up a little bit and at least giving it at least a spritz coat of some Ford blue. Probably not going to go too ham on it because I just don't have time to make it real nice, but I do want it to look a little bit better. So today we're going to get this motor finished. We're going to get the frame brackets and everything for the motor drilled, and then I'm probably going to start unbolting things on the truck, which you're going to see next video because this is a multi-part series. But then at some point I also have to do brakes. Now you've seen me do brakes on this on a 4x4 Ford truck before. I did it on the green highboy that we worked on, the 72 Explorer. It's the same exact concept. This one does have a heavy duty front end. There's almost no difference between them. All the brake stuff is basically identical. The only real major difference is that there's a hard line to the wheel cylinder instead of the rubber line going directly to it. Other than that, it's almost all the same. So I'll see you back, well, I guess when this motor's done. Well, it's been a day or so. I don't actually remember when I really recorded last. I think I recorded yesterday. It's the next day, I think. It's Wednesday, which basically means we have the rest of today, because it's already 2 o'clock right now because I had to work earlier today. So we have the rest of today, and then tomorrow, and then I'm supposed to be leaving Friday. I don't know. We'll see, folks. It's getting down to it, and I shouldn't be talking. I should be working. But the problem is we had this wicked windstorm just come in out of nowhere, unfortunately. And I mean, it is really windy. We've got like 40 to 50 mile an hour winds right now for the past day. Since yesterday morning, it's just been, wind's been a whipping, and it won't stop. And it's kind of really been messing up my flow. I've been getting work done. I actually did get the engine mounts, the perches, drilled and bolted. Couldn't really record it because it was over the course of like multiple hours coming out and doing something, going back, and I have a metal splinter that is still in my finger. What I did do last night was finish up the engine. Yesterday turned out to be honestly kind of a waste of a day because I ended up chasing parts because the original timing cover off of this 460 was so corroded that the water ports were literally gone, and it was probably 0.5 seconds of running before it started leaking into the oil pan. I'm actually surprised it didn't leak before. It was gooped up pretty good, but I couldn't use that timing cover. It was just too far gone. I had a second timing cover, the one that actually came off the motor that the crank came out of. Got that over here. Come to find out, it'd been hacked to pieces and had 2 broken bolts inside the aluminum that would not come out. I tried. So I then had to call a friend who I bought all of my other previous parts for and ask him if he had any timing covers, and he said, well, he thinks he has 1 or 2, and went over there real fast, paid him. I ended up paying $50 for this one because it's actually really nice. It is basically brand new, it looks like. And so I had to get it. You know, it was kind of a last minute. Had to come to find out today, I actually found another one. I don't know if it's in any good of a shape, but this one's already ready to paint, so I don't feel too bad about it. And well, it's just been a fight. It's been one thing after another, one battle after another, you might say. And then really late last night, I was up again till 1 a.m.? Yeah, 1 a.m. I almost said 1 p.m. I was up till 1 a.m. putting U-joints in all of our drive shafts that I got. I thought I was going to paint them, but this windstorm is going to make that physically impossible. So if I do paint them, it's going to be in the truck. And actually, that is probably exactly what I'm going to do right now, is install the front and the rear drive shaft. I can't install the intermediate yet. Oh, I also still need shocks and a hard brake line, because I don't have front shocks. I guess I should get to work. Well, it's bright and early the next morning. I am exhausted. It's really starting to catch up to me. Yesterday, I tried to put the drive shafts in the frame, and I discovered a few things. First things first is the 2+ hours I spent putting new U-joints in all those drive shafts was kind of wasted because they were the wrong ones. They were 1310s by 1310s. And what I discovered was that I really needed 1310 to 1330 combo U-joints, and I don't have those. So what I ended up doing was taking the old U-joints, which are Dana Spicer joints, and the new U-joints, which are also Dana Spicer joints, and I took the caps off the new joints and I test fitted them on the old, and they seem to fit. So we're going to run the new caps with new bearings and grease on the old joints and hope that it works. We're throwing things at a wall to see what sticks. And, well, as of right this second, it's sticking. The unfortunate part is that I didn't actually have good full sets of the 1330 combo joints. And one of them actually had a broken off Zerk fitting. So my dad went home to extract it with the extractor, got it out. So I just got to take one of the new ones off the new fittings. Thought I'd be fine, but I am exhausted. It's been 6 days, well, 7 days non-stop. Starting to get there, folks. Anyways, we got that all fixed yesterday. Minus one drive shaft. Because the front drive shaft also didn't seem to fit. It was a little too short. I had it at full extension and it did not reach. And I don't know how much it's going to change when there's a motor and a cab and a bed, 3,000 pounds or so, sitting on the frame. If the axle's going to move enough back to compensate, or if I need to run a longer slip joint, which I do have, luckily. I should stop stalling. It's Thursday. I'm going to paint the motor, let that sit for a while and kind of cure up as long as possible before we have to install it. Start finishing up the brakes, probably put in the rear drive shaft because that one will fit and I can throw that in and call that done. Get the front brakes finished, maybe start the rear depending on how cured I want to let that motor cure, And then we're going to put the motor and trans together. I finally got I had to get bolts for the pressure plate because I was missing all of them pretty much. I had 2 out of 8, so I had to get bolts and I got them. And we will slap the flywheel on the motor, put the clutch on the motor, align it, blah, 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 blah. Put the engine and trans, make them kiss, and then hopefully final install them in the frame for now. We will see. I'll see you back when we're putting a motor in. Well, that's cool. Apparently there was still some oil in this thing. And, well, safe to say it just got everywhere. Breather. Now, like I said, I would love to really clean this thing down, you know, get it all nice and scraped, whatever. That's not going to happen, folks. We just don't have the time. If I have any hope of even making it, not just tomorrow, but any other day, I'm just going to need to accept that this thing isn't going to be perfect and move on. The intake is not getting painted because it's aluminum. It's also probably not getting really cleaned. So really we have the valve covers, and then the front of the motor is really what I'm worried about more than anything. So, wow, that was a lot of oil. Well, I guess let's take this thing outside and start cleaning it. Alright folks, here's the thing. We're going to be painting this thing with absolute careless abandon. There is no prep work. There is no taping off. I mean, I did tape off a few spots, like the crank snout, but basically everywhere else I'd want to tape off already has oil covering it, like the distributor's covered in oil. So I'm not exactly worried about some of those things, because it'll wipe right off with a rag and some acetone, which is what I'm wiping it with right now. But if you came here expecting a show quality paint job, you're in the wrong place. Alright folks, we didn't clean this thing well, we didn't prep it well, didn't even scuff it up actually. We're just trying to lay a fog coat down. That's all we're doing here, alright? We're not trying to make a pretty, beautiful, bondoed up, sanded, casting flaws motor, okay? We are simply just making it all one color. And I'll paint anything one color. $2 and you got yourself a paint job. And whatever the cost of paint is nowadays. But our oil pan is like 6 different colors. Our block is 2 different colors. Our timing cover's a different color. Water pump's a different color. You get what I'm saying? So we're just wiping this boy down, and then we're just gonna fog her on, you know? Absolutely do not expect a good paint job. I mean, this whole bottom of this block is disgusting. And we're just gonna paint right over it. Oh, I probably wanna tape that up. Or put something. I'll put the oil filter back on it. But we will paint our oil pan. That's already actually pretty nice and clean for the most part. So we're just gonna wipe it on up. Get some paint on that guy. Alright. I'd call that about done. There's still dirt on here, folks. It's not even clean. But that's okay. Sometimes you just got to do what you're going to do. And what we're going to do today is hackery at its finest. You've already seen me put a used crank with some new bearings in a motor that it wasn't balanced to, just to run a flywheel that it is not for this motor. And you've already seen or heard when I told you this morning that I'm using old U-joint centers with new U-joint bearings. Could you expect any less of me? It's also not ideal painting conditions, as it's 50 degrees maybe. We had this nice hot summer weather recently. It was 85, 90, 91 degrees when I was painting that frame a week ago. But all of a sudden, late May, it decided to get cold on us for like 3 days. And windy, right in the middle of building the frame. Couldn't the weather have waited? Now, you can say what you want, but I've had really good luck with this Duplicolor. And again, this is the DE 1606 Ford Dark Blue. This is what I use on everything. If you watch the Mach 1, if you watched, actually, this 67 truck, last year when I was prepping for Jamboree and I had to put a cast iron intake in place of the aluminum one, I painted everything this color. My wagon motor that I just painted, this is the go-to for anything post 19 67, really. 66, they were still using the older, lighter Ford blue. Some people call it old Ford blue. I don't know. And then 65 and earlier, if you had a hypo, you could have a black block with gold covers. So, food for thought, but this is my go-to. Some people say it's not perfect and they'd rather do a custom mix and all that, blah, blah, blah. Well, guess what, folks? 15 bucks at the parts store or so. It used to be cheaper. It's now, I think, 15 or 16 bucks. So, you know, inflation or something like that. I don't know what inflation has to do with the economy, because my tire pressure has nothing to do with it. Because my tire pressure has nothing to do with my wallet. Anyways, let's go for it. And yeah, I don't care about the manifolds. It's going to burn off. So we're not worried about that. But you want to do one real light coat just to get everything to stick. Which, because we didn't clean anything, we are going to do a really light coat to get everything to stick. Just paint right over the dirt, folks. It'll be fine. It's not going to make a difference anyways. This can is also used. It's probably half empty right now. So we may not get through 2 coats on this motor. We'll see. And you're supposed to shake it every 10 seconds or something like that. I don't know. Oh, the wind has already blown it away. This is... Alright. We may have to get a little close and personal. Yep, there it goes. Brand new aluminum timing cover, painted. Cracked paint that I didn't get off before, painted. Water pump that was put on and not painted for some reason before, painted. Yeah, it's really cold out here. This is not going to dry well. There it is, hitting the oil pan. I'll tell you what, folks, I don't think I've ever in my life painted an oil pan, because I've never had a motor out of a car that I actually cared enough to paint. Oh yeah. There we go. There's the color we're looking for. Fix it again, Tony. Oh yeah, she'll run. And by run, I mean paint run. The paint will run, because I'm gonna lay it on thick next coat. You know, I would say this might even be considered like a pole barn garage special, but he actually kind of cares about his stuff sometimes. And he actually knows how to paint and prep and do body work and overall make a really nice job out of something, even if he's doing budget. And as much as I would love to do that right now, not happening. Well, I'll see you back here when it's done. Well, can's officially gone, and didn't quite make it through 2 full coats. What else did you expect? Let's take a look at it. Now, obviously, it looks terrible. Can't really tell because it's still kind of dark. The sun is still not really peeking. So obviously it looks terrible, but that's what I promised you. I didn't promise good. I promised blue, which it is. It is dark blue, and I painted the oil pan, which you can't even tell. Yeah, there's not enough light, but you know, that'll do. Like I said, I got it all over the distributor right here, which that'll wipe off because that's coated in oil right now. In fact, the entire distributor is probably full of oil, so that'll be fun. And I definitely got a little bit on the intake at a few spots, like right there. Again, not a big deal because the intake's probably going to come off eventually anyways, and we'll actually do a better job at all this in the future. For now, it's blue. So now we can let that thing cure, dry-ish, you know, spend some time letting it really bake on there in this 50 degree weather. The sun's coming out though, so you know it's about to get hit in the sun, and that'll really bake it on there. And now, now we get the fun job of, we're going to keep going on the brakes, get this drive shaft in, and then I'll see you back here when we're putting a engine and transmission together. All right, it's finally been a little while. It's like 11:20 now, which is way later than I wanted to be doing this, but I got the front brakes tidied up. All the hoses are on, new wheel cylinders, cleaned up. This other side looked exactly the same. Somebody did a brake job somewhat recently, so it has brand new drums and brand new shoes. However, they did not put that side, the passenger side, back together correctly because the snap clip for the axle was not on the axle at all, and the outer nut wasn't tight at all. So somebody either messed something up or something somehow messed up in there. We're gonna hope that somebody just messed it up. But we're ready to lift this motor now. We've got the engine hoist out. Here we go, off the engine stand finally. Hopefully for the last time. Okay, pull this out. Oh wow, a lot lighter when there's no motor on it. All right, so here's the flywheel, and right here, this extra weight pad is why we had to change the crank on this guy. All right, question is, am I gonna be visually able to tell which way this goes? Got our flywheel bolts that are definitely not the same as an automatic. Got some thread locker blue. Couldn't tell you what type, it's just blue. God damn it. Give me the impact. I forgot something pretty important. Folks, you need your block plate. It's a Ford. Yeah, thing is, on a Ford you need the block plate because it indexes the starter, and sometimes you have different flywheel tooth counts that are different sizes, and the starter sits in a different location. And now, let's try that again. 460 ZF5 block plate. Back on. Oh. Whew. And I dropped them all. Perfect. Okay, now for the fun part. I've got this thing hopefully aligned. May have to loosen them up and realign it because that thing has a little bit of play, but hopefully it lines right up and we get this big guy lined up. Let's get these. I'm gonna have to pick up the motor a little bit because we're in, but well, there it is. Just make sure these are all tight. Now there are 2 bolts that go on the bottom of the flex plate, but there it is, motor and trans. Let's stab it in the truck, hopefully for the last time. All right, engine is going in. Oh, actually, I'm gonna have to hold up the trans. I'm ready. There's a crack. Oh, hang on. Okay, hang on. Okay. All right. Now the fun part, where the trans mount is on. Do not want to crush this. Let's just hope this slides right in and I don't have any issues. Oh, this one's gonna be close. Okay, well, it's in for hopefully the final time. It fits perfectly. Let me show you. All right, so if we come over here, you can see there's our motor mount. Now, we did actually have to take out one of these bolts, that one right there specifically, and the top one over here, and fix the holes a little bit because it wasn't sitting down fully on the mount. It was rubbing right against the back. To be fair, I kind of eyeballed these. This side, I ended up using an existing motor mount bolt insert because this one just wasn't going to work, and so I just drilled it and put a bolt in. And we actually only have 4 out of the 6 bolts bolted on. We've got 2 on the top, and then this one has 2 diagonal. That one only has 2 on the back side. The front side is going to be a nightmare because of the spacers that's in here. So honestly, I think 4 bolts, if 4 bolts won't hold it, 6 never would have. You know what I'm saying? I mean, there's only 3 bolts holding the actual motor mount on, so I think it'll be fine. This one is awfully close to the brake line, but it will clear. And you can get to it from underneath, and you can still get to the shock bolts underneath, which is nice. That's actually a big one. But there it is. It's sitting in there, and the transmission is actually perfectly sitting. It was slightly angled this way, I think, because of the way the motor mounts are designed. Something is a little funky about them. So we just slightly pried it, but only had to pry about, I don't know, 1/4 of an inch or so, and then it cleared just fine. So it's in. I will say the biggest concern right now is the physical height. This is where people have a bunch of issues with these transmissions. Is they often have a 2-inch clearance issue where the hump doesn't fit right or the firewall doesn't fit right. We're gonna see. It's definitely gonna be a little close, especially because where the shifter location is kind of fits it forward in the dash. So this is all gonna be figuring out, but you'll see it, and we're kind of at the point where everything under the hood of this truck is already taken off, minus like 1 or 2 things. And so now we just need to start taking the interior out so that we can get to the cab bolts at the back and get to the hump to take it out, and then take all the cab bolts out. And then we will probably be lifting this on. I'm gonna go ahead and actually take the wheels and tires off this and throw them on here so this thing can be a roller again. And there's no reason to put the rollers back on because we're gonna need those. So let's get to it. Went ahead and swapped wheels. It's getting official, folks. We're swapping the wheels just so I can have a roller again, and I thought, why put it on the old wheels when we're gonna have to switch them anyways? So I'm gonna go ahead and put on these new to this frame, my old wheels. Now, I did want to paint these white before this event, but that ain't happening. So that'll have to happen later. Ooh, this thing's a lot heavier with a motor and trans. Unfortunately, some of these threads are pretty rough, so this might actually take me longer than it should. Take this out. Check. Rolls great. Coming down. Not much. Look at that. There we go. We're finally at least kind of at the height that we're supposed to be. Yeah, it's probably 4 or 5 inches taller than the 2-wheel drive. Not too much, actually. That'll drop a little bit more, but, well, I don't know. Well, maybe, okay, actually, I take that back. The frame is physically a lot higher. So even though the axle is not too far off from the 2-wheel drive line, the frame itself is much higher. Anyways, I guess let's roll it out. Well, unfortunately, I actually didn't roll this out like I just said I would, because apparently I forgot to record everything that happened after that, and I just started on the next video that you'll see next week, which is getting the body and cab on the frame, which, as you can see, has already been done. But in all of the speediness and the short amount of time, I apparently just forgot to roll it out and do a bunch of footage of the body and frame. But basically, we got the motor and trans in here, and the important things to note is that we used 351 M400 motor mount perches with L&L 460 motor mounts in order to bolt onto our frame. The perches fit okay. We had to drill new holes for some of the bolts. We only got 4 out of the 6 bolts on each side. I will go back in later and try to add the other 2 bolts on each side, but for now, for driving it, I think 4 is fine, considering the motor's only held with 3 bolts on the motor mount and 1 bolt to the perches anyways. I think 4 on the perches is fine. Plus, I have them straddled and top and bottom, side to side, so I think it's pretty good. But the transmission fit in just fine. We just had to drill new holes for the actual transmission cross member because it did move back about an inch and a half to 2 inches. So I just drilled straight through the top of the frame, drilled new holes in the actual brackets instead of moving them. And then we just bolted it right up like normal. And it wasn't a problem. And more importantly, let me show you the drive shafts. We do have all of our drive shafts in here. And as you can tell, you can see that intermediate shaft right there. We did not have to modify the intermediate shaft at all. It fit perfectly with enough room for the slip joint to actuate, and all of the drive shafts fit just fine. So if you do this swap yourself, just know that if you're using a stock chassis and you just have your stock highboy drive shafts, they will fit with the 465 speed if you do it the way I did it. 21 inches back from the front corner of the motor mount purchase to the center of the core support bolt hole, drill those in, set it down, drill the transmission cross member just 1.5 inches to 2 inches back, give or take. I didn't measure it because it still fit on the stock brackets, so we just left it. And your drive shafts should just fit, no problem. Mine did, so that's my experience. I did find out, I went through a whole debacle over the U-joints. I redid U-joints about 3 or 4 times. Found out all of the U-joints were 1310 to 1330 combos, except for the one on the back of my ZF5, because we did find out my ZF5 is actually out of a 93, and the rear joint on the ZF5 is actually a 1350. So I had to get a 1330 to 1350 combo joint. All the others were 1310 to 1330. So that's how mine worked. Now, we're getting a little bit ahead of ourselves because you'll see all this next week, but I did want to let you know that the ZF5 does physically fit in here, although it is much taller, which was the big concern, as you can see. We do have to modify. I ended up cutting just a little slice out of our tunnel, just right there, just enough to make sure that this embossment doesn't rub, because there is this ear on the ZF5 that sticks straight up. Now, some people would just cut that, but I have to think that was cast there for a reason. So it may just be an extra structural integrity thing for the actual casting. I don't know. So I didn't cut it, and I just cut slightly around it on the hump because this was originally an automatic truck anyway. So we added the hump and we cut this hole. So I don't feel too bad about chopping it just a little bit more. It gets covered by the hump anyways. And then I do have to modify the floor hump to actually fit that little embossment because it runs right into where the 90 for the hump flange goes. As for the actual shifter itself, the shifter itself, because of where we have it set, is actually about 1.5 inches to 2 inches further back, which isn't a huge problem except for it sticks up so high that I did have to cut into my hole just a little bit more. Now, there's a few different ways you could do it. What I would suggest you try to do if you do this swap is to find yourself a 2-wheel drive automatic hump to make a completely new hole. I may end up doing that still. I may not like how big the new hole is. You could weld up the front half that you didn't cut and just take the pieces and just move them forward to shift the whole hole back. But for now, it'll work. I just need to get this thing driving because I only have a week to build this. Less than. At this point, it was like a day. So, and other than that, everything else on the build fits super well in the motor and trans department. The only other thing is that the motor does sit extremely low compared to where it sat in, well, the 1-ton truck. So I did have to, I'm changing out my thermostat housing for an angled one, a 45-degree angle one that came on like 85 Econoline 300s. The angled up so that I can meet the radiator just a little bit better, because the actual height between the radiator and the engine is a lot different than it was in the 1-ton truck. Oh, it got real dark. And then we're going to cover the clutch part of this in either part 3 or part 4. I think I'm going to add another video to this just because there's so much information, and this video, this one especially, is very long. So if you watched it this far, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of you that watch my videos. I do apologize. I talk a lot. I'm very, very aware of that. And I definitely talked a lot in this video. You should have seen what I cut. It was a byproduct of me compartmentalizing how quickly I needed to do this project in order to get done in time. So sorry about that. But if you enjoyed this video, thank you so much for watching. Please let me know by leaving me a like, comment, subscribe even if you want to see more content like this. We have probably at least 2 more videos in this series, and then who knows, probably some more videos going off-roading with this thing and taking it out to events and stuff like that, because the plan for this truck is to make it nice eventually. And for now, 4x4 will do. But in the future, nice will be better. So I will catch you next time. I'll see you next week on Cherry Picking when we finish up the 67 highboy build. Or maybe not finish up, but we put the cab and bed on. So, see you next week. There's a lot to do still. Lot to do.